Welcome back to FOGMAN Stories, the channel for true ghost stories. Made for the brave-hearted. Every week, we bring you terrifying tales based on real experiences, retold with vivid detail and haunting atmosphere. If you're someone who's drawn to the unknown, to the spirits lurking in the shadows, then you've come to the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single story. Your support means the world to us, and it's what keeps us going on this chilling journey into the paranormal. Now, find yourself a quiet place, turn off all the lights, and get ready to step into a story from the other side. Story 1. Hey everyone, welcome back to FOGMAN Stories. Tonight, I want y'all to settle in, take a breath, and let your mind ease into the kind of story that sneaks up on you when the world gets quiet. This one ain't about shadows down in the woods or haunted basements. This one hits closer to home. It's about a feeling, a presence, and a cat who just might be more than he seems. So, I live in a quiet apartment. Nothing fancy. Just me and my cat, Oscar. He's a sleek, black fellow with a big personality. Always talking, always underfoot, always curled up next to my leg when I sleep. Been like that for years. Almost like a little furry guardian. Until a couple weeks back, when things started to shift. It began one night around midnight. I just finished brushing my teeth, turned off the last of the lights, and crawled into bed like usual. I leaned over and patted the spot next to me, the way I always do when I'm calling Oscar to bed. But this time, he didn't move. He just sat there, at the foot of the bed, stiff as a statue, staring. I followed his gaze, but there was nothing, just the dark space over my shoulder. Still, the way he stared made my skin crawl. You know when a cat's locked onto something, not blinking, not even twitching? That was him. His eyes even had that strange glow to them, catching what little light was left in the room. He didn't make a sound. No meow, no purr, nothing. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just tired, or curious about a moth or something I couldn't see. But the next night, same thing. I climbed into bed, called him over, and he froze at the edge of the mattress, eyes fixed on that same spot just above my pillow. It was like he saw something hovering there, something I couldn't feel or hear, but something he was dead serious about. I started saying goodnight out loud, to the apartment, to the shadows, to whatever might be lingering. All right, I'd call, half joking. Bedtime. Good night everyone. Sometimes that'd get Oscar to finally walk up and curl beside me. But sometimes, he'd still hesitate, and those were the nights I'd sleep a little lighter, with one eye cracked open. There were dreams too, weird ones. Most of the time I sleep fine. But those nights when Oscar stayed distant, those were the ones where I'd wake up sweating, heart racing, like I'd been running from something. The kind of dreams where you're not sure if you were asleep or not. Faces in the dark, whispers that didn't have words, a pressure on my chest, cold and heavy. I started watching the clock. It always happened around the same time, between 12 and 1 in the morning. I even kept a little journal next to the bed and wrote down what Oscar did each night. Some nights, he was normal again, cuddled close, warm and soft and safe. Other nights, he was like a statue, silent, distant, eyes fixed on that same cursed spot. There was something else, too. A few days after Christmas, I noticed a patch of white fur above his right eye. I swear to you, He was pure black before. Jet black. But now, this little mark had shown up out of nowhere. I joked to myself that maybe he'd seen a ghost so scary it turned his fur white. But part of me wasn't laughing. I talked to a friend who knows a bit about spiritual stuff. She asked me if I'd ever blessed the apartment. I said no. It's been around since the 1920s. And from what I'd been told, only one family lived here before me. The landlord's parents. Then his sister. Quiet folks. Nothing tragic as far as I knew. But my friend raised an eyebrow and said, "Sometimes it's not about tragedy. Sometimes it's just about energy that lingers." After that, I bought some sage and did a little smudging around the place. Oscar didn't like the smell, but he stayed close as I moved from room to room. I focused especially on the bedroom, on that weird spot above my headboard. I even whispered, "If you're here, I see you, but this is my home now. You don't belong here." For a few nights, things calmed down. Oscar came back to sleeping beside me like he used to. No staring, no silence, no cold dreams. But last night, I woke up at 12:38. Not because of a dream, but because Oscar hissed. Not loud, not dramatic, but a low, rumbling hiss from the foot of the bed. He was standing, back arched, fur on end, eyes glowing like embers. I turned my head slowly, heart pounding, and I swear I saw a flicker of something. Like a ripple in the air. A shape, thin and tall, moving past the curtain. Then it was gone. Just like that, Oscar jumped onto the bed, pressed his side against mine, and didn't move for the rest of the night. He's been quiet today, watching, waiting. So maybe it's nothing. Maybe I've just been alone too long. And the mind plays tricks in the dark. But when your cat changes, when the one creature who always made you feel safe starts acting like something is wrong asterisk, you learn to listen. And maybe, just maybe, something is listening back. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. It's not the scariest story I've ever told, but it's real, and sometimes, the real ones? They're the ones that stay with you the longest. If you've ever had a pet react to something unseen, or if you've ever felt that cold watchful presence when you're alone in your room, you're not alone. Let me know in the comments. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to FOGMAN Stories. We've got more true tales coming your way real soon. Until next time, sleep tight, and keep your eyes open. Story 2. Alright y'all, before we dive into tonight's story, let me just say this. Sometimes the things we see when we least expect them, they stay with us forever. You might be alone. You might be half asleep. But when something steps out of the ordinary and into your world, you know. This story right here, it's one of those moments. And trust me, it's one I haven't forgotten since it happened. So, this all went down back in the spring of 1985. I was 31 years old at the time, about 5 months pregnant, and visiting my folks out in the north end of Albuquerque, or well, not exactly Albuquerque, but a quiet suburb just outside of town, called Red Hill Acres. They'd just moved into this brand new, 2-story Spanish-style house. White walls, red clay roof, big arched windows, real pretty place. It still had that fresh paint smell lingering in the hallways. You know, everything was spotless, almost too perfect. My mom had been real excited to have me stay for a while. She'd gone all out setting up the guest room, put in a new daybed facing this big old arched window that looked out towards the street. The streetlight outside made sure the room was never pitch black, just dim enough to make out shapes and shadows. I figured I'd get some decent sleep. Boy, was I wrong about that. That night, after dinner and some late night chatting with my mom and dad, everyone decided to call it a night. My dad always fell asleep with the TV on, volume low. Mom liked to read until she nodded off. I settled into the daybed, belly already starting to make certain positions awkward. But I eventually found a comfortable spot lying on my side, facing the wall away from the window. I was dozing off, in that weird in-between stage where you're not really asleep but not fully awake either. I remember trying to drift off, but something just wouldn't let me go under completely. Then suddenly, no warning, no sound, I felt like someone was in the room with me. And not just like a passing feeling. I knew. You ever have that moment where your gut just screams at you that something ain't right? That's what this was. So I slowly opened my eyes. And sure enough, standing about 4 feet in front of me, in the space between the bed and the window, was a figure. At first, I genuinely thought it was my mom. The figure was wearing a robe, long and dark, and it was turned away from me. Just standing there, didn't move, didn't speak. I said, real soft, "Mom?" No response. Still thinking maybe she'd been sleepwalking. Maybe had a glass of wine too many. I propped myself up on one elbow and said louder, "Mom." That got its attention. Slowly, and I mean slowly, the figure began to turn toward me. And that's when every single hair on my body stood straight up. It wasn't my mom. I can't tell you exactly what it was. It didn't have glowing eyes or some monstrous face. It didn't lunge at me or make a sound. But it had a presence. Like the air in the room went heavy. Like my lungs had to work twice as hard just to breathe. And before I could scream, before I could do anything, it vanished, right in front of my eyes. Gone. I sat there frozen for what felt like forever. Then, panic kicked in. I jumped up, flicked on every light in the room, lamp, ceiling light, even turned on the old tube TV. I ran down the hallway barefoot and threw open my parents' bedroom door. My dad was snoring, flat on his back. Mom was curled up on her side, book still open on her chest, a little drool on her chin. I shook her gently, nothing. She was out cold. I remember whispering, "No way. No way that was you." I checked the rest of the house. Kitchen, living room, both bathrooms, even the garage, every light on, every closet door opened, not a damn thing. But I felt it. I knew it saw me. And I knew that when it vanished, it was because it chose to. Like it knew it had scared me and didn't want to push further. What messed me up more than anything was that I didn't feel any evil from it. No hate, no anger, just a quiet presence, a watcher. For days after that, I kept thinking about it, wishing I hadn't reacted the way I did, wishing I hadn't gotten so scared. I even spoke out loud to it. When I was alone in the room, "I'm sorry I was scared. Please come back." It never did. But that moment, it never left me, not once in all these years. Now, I don't know what I saw. Guardian angel? Spirit of the house? Something passing through? All I know is I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't high or drunk. I was wide awake when it turned toward me. And I was wide awake when it disappeared. And sometimes I still wonder, what if I hadn't called out? What if I just watched? So that's it. That's my story. You can believe it or not. I ain't here to convince anybody. But if y'all ever had a moment like that, where something impossible felt realer than the room around you. Then you know I'm not crazy. Thanks for listening. And hey, if you've seen something too, you're not alone. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like hearing true stories like this. I've got more to share. And maybe, just maybe, they'll make you think twice when the shadows get a little too quiet. See y'all next time. Story 3. Hey folks. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I know y'all love a good ghost story, especially when it's based on something real. So today, I've got one for you that's gonna chill you to the bone. It's about a house in my hometown that, let's just say, has seen a little too much. Both me and my childhood buddy had lived in that place at different times, and what we experienced there, well, you be the judge. Let me take y'all back to the small town of Pine Hollow. It's one of those places where everybody knows everybody, and secrets don't stay buried for long, except, maybe, the ones buried with the house on Maple Street. I used to live in that house when I was about 13. Back then, I didn't think much about ghosts or spirits. I was more worried about getting to school on time and sneaking snacks when my mom wasn't looking. The first time something happened, it was early in the morning. I was getting ready for school, dragging my blanket down the stairs because that house was always cold. Like, weird cold, not winter cold, bone deep cold. Anyway, I felt something behind me, like, you know when someone's following you real close? I turned around, and there it was. A dog. But not just any dog. This one had no head, and I could see straight through it. It didn't growl, didn't move, just stood there. Then, poof, it was gone. I shook it off. Maybe I was sleepy. Maybe it was the light. But deep down, I knew better. Fast forward a few weeks. One evening, I went down to the basement. We had a pool table down there and that was my spot to unwind. I flipped the basement light on, stepped onto the stairs, and as I was heading down, I felt something grab my leg from behind the stairs. Like under them, I screamed, ran the rest of the way down, and right then, the light snapped off. Complete darkness. I didn't look back, just ran to the side door and didn't stop till I was outside. After that, we moved the pool table upstairs. Nobody really talked about it, but my parents knew something was off. Oh, and there was this wooden box in their room. Looked like a handmade storage chest. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never get it open. Like it was glued shut or something. Years later, we moved out. I thought I'd left all that creepy stuff behind. But about 6 years down the line, my childhood friend, Ray, moved into the same house with his folks. I hadn't even told him about the weird stuff. But guess what? He started telling me things that made my stomach twist. He said some nights, he'd hear this red rubber ball bouncing down the stairs. Back and forth. Sometimes he'd see it, just bouncing by itself. And once, he saw a little girl. Said she looked maybe 6 or 7. She'd show up in his room, crying, holding a doll with its head broken off. That's not even the worst part. Ray said a man would appear, holding an axe. He'd grab the girl, yank her out of the room, and throw her down the stairs. And every time, Ray would hear her scream. One night, he got brave, followed them. They went down to the basement. When he got there, they vanished. But the basement, it changed. Said the floor looked like it was covered in bones. There was a tunnel, tiny, dusty, ran along the foundation. He crawled in and saw an axe propped against the wall. Reached for it, and it vanished. I spent that summer over at Ray's place more than my own. One afternoon around 4, we were watching old wrestling tapes. ECW stuff. It suddenly got dark. Like nighttime dark. Then the lightning started. Ray looked real serious. Said last time this happened, the ghosts came out after the 13th lightning strike. I laughed. Second lightning flash. I looked outside. Saw someone staring from an abandoned trailer across the street. But nobody lived there. I told Ray. He just nodded. Said, keep count. A few flashes later, my nose started bleeding. I passed out cold. Woke up with a wet rag on my forehead and toilet paper in my nostrils. Ray said I started shaking and collapsed. We were at 10 lightning strikes. I told him I saw a man with glowing red eyes. Then strike 11, 12. The last one hit, no thunder. Just this eerie silence. The TV went black. Cold wind rushed through the room. I looked up. There she was. The little girl, right by the window. I covered my head, whispering, all right, Ray, I believe you. No answer. Something tugged the covers. I pulled them down and she was right in front of my face. We screamed like crazy. Ran out the house. Didn't stop till we got to the gas station 2 blocks away. Later on, we asked around. Folks in town said the house was always haunted. One older lady said she used to live there before us. One night, she locked up the house. Went to bed. Just as she was falling asleep, she heard the front door unlock, open, shut, and lock again. That house only had one door you could lock from the outside. And that was the side door. She ran down, nobody there. Went back to bed. Then she heard clanging in the kitchen. Ran down again. Dishes on the floor. Forks and knives floating in the air. They shot toward her. She ducked behind a door. Packed her bags and left the same night. We tried to look up the history of that house. But nothing showed up. No old articles. No crime reports. It was like someone had erased everything. Now, I don't know what really went down in that house. But I do know one thing. Some places carry pain. And they don't let go. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. If you've had something strange happen in your hometown, drop it in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories just like this one. Stay safe, y'all. See you in the next one. Story 4. You know, growing up in certain places leaves an imprint on you. And some of those places, well, they just ain't normal, no matter how much folks try to explain them away. The story I'm about to share happened when I was just a kid. And it's stuck with me all my life. It took place in an old apartment building down in the Bronx, New York. But before you go thinking this is one of those ghost stories made up to scare kids, let me tell you, this really happened to me. I remember, even as a little one, I'd see these gray, misty shadows float across my bedroom at night. They didn't make noise, and they didn't bother me. Just drifted through the room, out the door, and into the living room like they owned the place. I was small, maybe 6 or 7, so I figured it was normal. Like dreams you have that feel real but don't make sense. My parents never saw him. My sisters never said nothing. But to me, they were as common as the creaks in the floor. Things really started getting strange when I began to notice energy. I guess you'd call it forces that didn't belong. Like my mom's old brown hair roller. She only had one like that. The rest were black or blue. But that brown one, man, it was different. I'd stick my finger inside it and it would start to tickle. The plastic threads would wiggle like they were alive. Only that one did it. Never any of the others. I asked Mom where it came from and she just said someone gave it to her. Didn't think much of it. But I did. That little roller felt wrong. One afternoon, I was lying on my mom's bed, resting. I don't know what made me do it, but I reached up and touched this little dent in the wooden headboard. And somehow, I moved the dent, literally moved it to the other side. When Mom saw it, she freaked out, thought I was ruining the furniture. But I was just as shocked as her. I tried to move it back, but it wouldn't budge. It was like something let me do it once. And only once. Then there was the dog. We were all walking down the street, Mom, Dad, my sisters, and me. A family was coming from the other direction, walking a black dog on a leash. Nothing unusual about that, until I got a good look at its face. It wasn't a dog's face. It was a woman's. Pale skin, red hair, maybe in her 40s, and her eyes locked with mine. No one else seemed to notice. Not Mom, not Dad, but when the dog passed by, it turned its head and stared straight at me. Still gives me chills thinking about it. Later on, we moved to an apartment out in Coney Island. Different place, but the strangeness came with us. My dad was fixing the light in the hallway, and I felt this strong urge to look through the old keyhole in the front door. You know the kind, those big, old-fashioned ones. When I looked through, there was an eye staring back at me. I knew whose eye it was. Belonged to the same woman I saw in the dog's face. Thing is, she didn't even live in our building. She was in the one next door. What was she doing looking through our door? One morning, I stayed home sick while Mom took my sisters to school. I was lying in bed and heard typing from the little office room. Figured Dad was home, working on one of his church speeches. When Mom came back, I told her he was in the office. She said, "No, he ain't. He left with me." I didn't believe her, so I went to check. No one was there, but the typewriter was still on the desk. That wasn't the last time it happened. Few weeks later, same thing. Only this time, I knew Dad wasn't home. I heard typing again, and when I went to check, the desk was empty, but the noise was coming from the closet. I walked over, pressed my ear against the door, and felt the vibration of the keys. I opened it up, the sound stopped. The typewriter was up on the top shelf. I climbed up to look at it, and all the keys were pressed up like they'd just been used. I ran straight to my room and buried myself under the covers. Mom came home and found me shaking. I couldn't even explain it. Later, when Dad needed the typewriter, he yelled, asking who messed it up. I didn't dare say anything. He wouldn't believe me anyway. We were a Christian family, and for a while, I couldn't even hold a Bible. Every time I tried to read it, the words would jump around, like trying to push two magnets together on the same side. It just didn't sit right in my hands. That feeling went away eventually, but I never forgot it. Now here's where things took a turn. Mom decided to move me into the little office room. First night sleeping in there, I got hit with asthma, stomach cramps, fever, the works. Soon as I left the room and went to sleep in my parents' bed, I was fine. Next night, same thing. The room just didn't want me there. Finally, they moved me back to my old room. But this time, the bed was placed in a way that I could see out into the hallway, and even a bit of the staircase through the crack under the door. One night, While everyone was asleep, I heard footsteps, someone coming up the stairs. I waited, expecting a knock, but instead, I saw the shadow of shoes stop at our door, then head up the next flight of stairs. Thing is, we lived on the top floor. Nobody should have been going up there. I ran to my parents' room, yelling that someone was on the roof. Dad opened the door and called out, but no one answered. No one was there. I fell down the stairs 3 times while we lived there, always from the 3rd floor down to the 2nd. And every time, I felt something push me. Not trip, push. Years passed, and I started piecing things together. That woman, the one with the red hair, she used to live in our apartment before we moved in. She was into spiritism, did all kinds of rituals in that office room. That was her eye in the keyhole, her face on that dog. One time, Mom sent me to the hardware store around the corner, and I saw her on the street. She smiled at me like she knew me. I ran inside, heart pounding. The store owner asked what was wrong, and I couldn't speak. She peeked in through the window, still smiling. When she walked off, I ran home fast as I could. There's more. Sometimes I get feelings about things that end up happening. Not always, but often enough to know it ain't coincidence. I can sense bad energy in people, like there's something inside him that don't belong. Through the years, I've come to understand a few things. Some folks walk around looking normal, but there ain't nothing behind their eyes. They're like empty vessels, waiting to be filled with whatever dark thing finds them first. And some things, they ain't meant to be understood. They're just there, watching, waiting. That old apartment changed me, made me realize the world is bigger than what we see, and not all of it is good. So take it from me. Stay away from things you don't understand. And if you ever feel like something's off about a place, trust that feeling. Looking back, I still don't know what to make of everything I saw and felt in that apartment. Some folks might say it's just childhood imagination, but I know better. Too many things lined up. Too many moments that defied logic. What I learned is this: not all hauntings come with screams and flying furniture. Sometimes, they come as whispers in the dark, as eyes in keyholes, as typewriters that remember hands no longer there. If you're still listening, thank you. I hope my story made you think a little, maybe even question some things. And if you ever experienced something similar, know that you're not alone. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Who knows, maybe your story is next. Stay safe out there. Story 5. Alright y'all, let me tell you something weird that happened to me some years back. Something I ain't never really been able to explain. This ain't no made-up ghost story or nothing. It's what I lived through. Plain and simple. Whether you believe in hauntings or not, that's up to you, but I got my own take on it now. Back in the late summer of 2005, I moved into this big old flat in a quiet part of Clarksville, Tennessee. The place had charm. I ain't gonna lie. Big windows, creaky wood floors, and those high ceilings you just don't see much anymore. I moved in with 3 good buddies of mine, Mark, Eric, and Tom. We were all in our 20s, trying to figure out life, working odd jobs and just enjoying what freedom we had. The flat was a rental, but it had a history to it. The kinda place where you felt like the walls had seen some things. It wasn't long after we moved in that strange little things started happening. At first, we brushed it off. You know, Old houses make noise, but there was one day in particular that still gives me chills. I was home alone that afternoon, just cleaning up the kitchen, putting dishes away like usual. It was a quiet day. Sun was out, windows cracked open a bit. I was reaching up to stack some plates when I heard it, this long, deep sigh, a woman's sigh, right behind me. I froze. Now here's the thing. I wasn't scared at first. It sounded exactly like Tom's girlfriend, Josie. She was over all the time and I'd known her for years. I figured maybe she'd let herself in and I just hadn't heard the door. So I turned around, smiling, ready to say hey, but no one was there. I mean it. Kitchen was empty. I looked through the whole place, the living room, bedrooms, even peeked into the bathroom. Not a soul. And the front door? Still locked. That was the first time I really got spooked. I told Tom about it later, and he just kinda laughed it off. But that wasn't the last of it. See, a couple weeks later, I went out of town for the weekend with my fiancée. We were visiting her folks down in Birmingham. Eric was off on a work trip and Mark had gone camping with some friends. Only Tom and Josie stayed at the flat that weekend. We got back late Sunday night, tired but glad to be home. As soon as I walked in, Tom looked at me weird and said, "Where the hell you been all day?" I told him we'd been gone since Friday. His face went pale. He said, "But we saw you last night. You walked from your room to the kitchen and back." Josie saw it too. We were sitting on the couch watching TV. It was dark, but we were sure it was you. I swear I got goosebumps just hearing that. I laughed nervously, tried to joke it off. But deep down, something didn't sit right. From then on, we all started noticing things. Mostly at night, like when I was sitting at my desk in the computer room, just doing my thing. I'd hear these slow, heavy footsteps out in the dining room. That creaky wood sound you can't mistake. At first, I thought it was Eric. He always wore them hard-soled boots indoors. So I'd get up to say hey. But the place would be dead quiet. Nobody home. One time I actually waited by the door, thinking I'd catch whoever was walking around. I heard the footsteps, real as day, but when I flung open the door, nothing. Just an empty room. Turns out I wasn't the only one hearing it. Mark mentioned it one night. Said he was trying to sleep when he heard boots walking back and forth across the floor. He thought maybe Eric got up for a midnight snack. But when he asked him about it, Eric swore he was out of town. That flat. It had a way of getting under your skin. And the weirdest part? It didn't feel evil. Exactly. Just off. Like someone, or something, was stuck in a loop. Tom came up with a theory. And honestly, it's the only thing that made sense. He said, what if the house is just remembering? Like, it's replaying bits and pieces of us. Like echoes. We all thought about that for a while. It wasn't just footsteps or shadows. Sometimes the door to the bathroom would creak open real slow, even when it was shut tight. Or the lights in the hall would flicker just when you were passing through. One time I heard whispering when I was trying to sleep. Thought it was the TV from the other room. But it was off. We didn't tell a lot of people about it. Who would believe us? But I'll tell you this. I was never so glad to move out of a place in my life. We all went our separate ways by spring of 2006. And none of us had an experience quite like that again. I think about that place sometimes. Maybe the spirits weren't angry. Maybe they were just trying to live the same life over and over. Stuck in some kind of time loop. I don't really know. But I do know this. If you ever feel like someone's watching you in an empty house. Maybe they are. Thanks for listening to my story. If y'all enjoy hearing about real-life hauntings, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give the video a like. And let me know if you've ever had something strange happen to you. Till next time, stay safe, and keep your ears open at night. You never know who, or what, might be walking down the hall. Story 6. You know, some houses just have a feeling to them. Not a bad feeling, necessarily, but different, like the walls are listening. Like something else is there with you. That's how my grandparents' house always felt to me. And now that I'm older, and I've learned a few things, I think I know why. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, and get comfy. Let me tell you about the cowboy in the hallway, and the ghost of a girl named Phyllis. My name's Marcus, and I grew up visiting my grandparents every other weekend. They live in a quiet little neighborhood in a town called Ridgetown. Somewhere in the Midwest. Their house was built in the 60s, and they were the first and only people to ever live there. It's the kind of house that looks like nothing ever happens, neatly trimmed lawn, plastic flowers by the porch, wind chimes that always tinkle even when there's no breeze. But there's one thing about that house that always gave me the creeps: the hallway. It's a long hallway, stretching from the living room to the back bedrooms. During the day, it's fine, but at night, no matter how many lights were on, that hallway always felt darker, heavier, and when I was a kid, I would do anything to avoid walking down it alone. Sometimes I'd even hold my pee until morning, just so I didn't have to go down the hallway to the bathroom. At the time, I couldn't explain why. I just knew that something about that hallway made my skin crawl. Years went by. I got older, moved out, got busy with life. I still visited every now and then, but not as often. Then, this past Christmas, the whole family gathered at my grandparents' place. It was a rare full reunion. Me, my parents, my Uncle Danny, and a few of his old high school buddies who dropped by for eggnog and stories. That's when the hallway came up. My grandpa, who's always been a no-nonsense, tough as nails kind of guy, casually mentioned, "You know, the cowboy's still around. Saw him just last week." I blinked. "The what now?" "The cowboy," Uncle Danny said, nodding. "Man in a hat, always standing at the end of the hallway near the back bedroom. Been seeing him since I was a teen." "Wait, you're serious?" I asked, half laughing. They all looked at me. Dead serious. Turns out, my grandpa, my uncle, and even a couple of Uncle Danny's friends had all seen the same figure. A tall man wearing a cowboy hat, standing silently at the end of the hallway. He never said a word, never moved, just stood there, watching. My grandma, who we call Nona, 'cause she's Italian, had never seen him. Neither had my dad, and neither had I. But when I thought back to how I felt as a kid, the fear, the unease, it made too much sense. Uncle Danny swears he once tried to walk down the hallway when the cowboy was there, and the temperature dropped like he stepped into a freezer. He stopped halfway, turned around, and didn't go back until morning. Grandpa, on the other hand, seemed used to it, said the cowboy never meant any harm. He just exists. Still, hearing all this stirred something in me. I hadn't been to that house in years. Not properly. So I decided, next time I visit, I'm gonna look for him. Maybe now that I know what to expect, I'll finally see him too. Now, the cowboy in the hallway isn't the only spirit my grandpa's seen. There's another story, one he told me that same night, while we were sitting on the porch with mugs of hot cider, watching the snow fall. I ever tell you about the time I saw Phyllis? He asked. No, who's that? Used to be our neighbor. Back when I was about 15 or 16, he said, looking out into the night like he was seeing something far away. He told me that one day, after school, he was walking home when he saw Phyllis, who lived 2 doors down, walking up the sidewalk ahead of him. He shouted her name, tried to catch up. Phyllis, hey, wait up, but she didn't turn around. Just kept walking. He followed her for a bit, thinking maybe she had headphones in or was ignoring him. Eventually, she turned down the street toward her house. But she never once looked back. Confused, Grandpa went up to her door and knocked. Her mom answered, her eyes red and puffy. Is Phyllis home? He asked. I just saw her walking down the street. Her mom stared at him for a second. Then she said, Phyllis passed away 2 hours ago. He said his heart dropped right into his shoes. It didn't make sense. He was sure it was her. He'd known her for years, same build, same walk, same jacket she always wore in winter. He wasn't mistaking her for someone else. I think she was on her way out, Grandpa said softly, crossing over, or saying goodbye. Maybe, I don't know, but it was her. I'm sure of it. I remember sitting there, staring into my cider, not knowing what to say. Grandpa didn't seem scared or sad, just thoughtful, like these moments had become part of the fabric of his life. You know, growing up, I always thought ghosts were something from movies. Chains rattling, doors slamming, screams in the night. But the things my grandpa saw? They were quiet, simple, mysterious, sure, but not like Hollywood makes them out to be. And maybe that's what makes them real. I haven't been back to my grandparents' house since that Christmas. But I plan to. I want to walk down that hallway again. I want to see if the cowboy is still there. Maybe he's waiting for me this time. As for Phyllis, I think about her sometimes. And how Grandpa saw her one last time. There's something peaceful about that. Even if it's eerie. In the end, what I've learned is this. Spirits don't always come to scare you. Sometimes they just linger. Watching, remembering, or maybe hoping someone remembers them. Thanks for listening to my story. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. I've got plenty more where that came from, and who knows? Maybe next time, it'll be your hallway with a cowboy in it. See you in the next story. Story 7. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the channel. You know, every now and then I get a message or a story that sounds just like something out of a horror movie. But then I find out it really happened to someone, right here, in our world. So today, I want to share with y'all a story that's been sittin' heavy on my mind ever since I read it. It's not full of blood or jump scares, but it'll give you that cold chill down your back, especially if you've ever laid awake at night wondering if you were really alone. Alright, let me take y'all back a bit. I used to live in this old creaky house in a little neighborhood called Pinebrook, California. Nothing fancy. Just your typical 2-bedroom place with wood floors that groaned every time you walked across them. My mom, she was a strong woman. Real kind-hearted. Always had a Bible in her hand and a prayer on her lips. She used to tell me, if you ever feel something off, like a bad spirit or some darkness, Just rebuke it in the name of Jesus. Baby. And I held onto those words like they were armor. Now I was about 15 when this first happened. I'm 27 now. But that night's still clear as day in my memory. It was the middle of summer, hot. Still. One of those nights where the air just presses down on you. I had woken up for no reason. Just opened my eyes to the dark. Couldn't fall back asleep, so I just lay there, staring into the shadows. After a while, I shut my eyes again. That's when it started. It was like a wave of numbness crawled up from my toes to the top of my head. I was wide awake, but I couldn't move, not even wiggle a finger. My heart was racing. My chest felt tight, and something in the room just felt wrong. Like there was a presence there, watching me, breathing in the same air. My first instinct? I wanted to scream, but my lips wouldn't part. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I prayed, quietly, in my head. I started saying the Lord's Prayer. And I'm telling you, as soon as I started that prayer, the heaviness began to lift. Bit by bit, I could feel my fingers. Then my arms, my chest. When it was over, I lay there, sweaty and shaken, but able to move. I didn't tell anyone at first. I figured it was some kinda sleep paralysis thing, even though it didn't feel like no dream I'd ever had. But here's the kicker, it wasn't the only time. Over the next year or so, it kept happening. Not every night, not even every month, but just often enough that I started sleeping with the light on. Bible on the nightstand, and I wasn't the only one feeling things in that house. My sister, Jessica, swore up and down that someone, or something, pulled the blanket right off her in the middle of the night. And not like it slid down while she was tossing and turning. She said it felt like someone grabbed it and yanked it away. One morning, she was so shaken she wouldn't even come back in the room. Said she saw a handprint on the end of her bed, like someone had been standing there watching her sleep. Now, I know what some folks might say. Y'all were kids, just imagining things. And sure, that could be true for some. But not this. There was this one time. I remember it like it just happened yesterday. It was during summer break. Probably around 11 a.m. my mom was at work, and I was home alone. I had the house all to myself, or so I thought. I woke up late, stretched, and sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes. That's when I saw them. Two figures, just standing at my bedroom doorway. They looked like boys, one about my age, maybe 15, and the other a bit younger, maybe 10, just standing there, staring, not moving, not saying a word. For a second I thought maybe I was dreaming. So I blinked, and just like that, they were gone. I shot out of the bed like my feet were on fire. Got dressed in record time and called my mom to come pick me up. While I waited, I checked every door and window in that house. All of them locked up tight. No sign of anyone getting in or out. And the weirdest thing? The house was cold. Not just cool, cold. Like someone had left the freezer open kinda cold. I tried to tell myself maybe it was all in my head. But the feeling stuck with me, like those boys weren't just ghosts. But something else, like they were trying to tell me something. After that, I didn't stay home alone much. We eventually moved out of that house a couple years later. I've had some weird dreams since. And every now and then I'll get that same feeling, like I'm being watched. But nothing's ever hit me like that old place in Pinebrook. So yeah, nothing too crazy. No poltergeists or demons or anything like that. But it was real. Real enough to make me sleep with the lights on. And real enough that I still pray before bed every night. And maybe, just maybe, if you've ever felt something like that, you ain't alone either. Stories like these might not have flashy special effects or dramatic showdowns. But they feel real because they are real. They come from regular folks, people just like you and me, who experience the unexplained and have to live with those memories. What happened in that little house in Pinebrook might not be unique. Maybe there are houses just like it all over the world. And maybe, just maybe, there's a reason some folks see things while others never do. Thanks for sticking around, y'all. If you've had a story like this, drop it in the comments or send it my way. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep these real ghost stories coming. Take care, and sleep tight, if you can. Story 8. Hey there, folks. Thanks for stopping by again. You know, sometimes people think that only old houses creak with ghosts and echoes from the past. But let me tell you, even the smallest, plainest little apartment can hold onto something, uninvited. So let me take you back a bit, to the time I moved into my very first apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple one-bedroom spot tucked inside a square-shaped complex. 4 rooms total, small kitchen, tiny living room, 1 bathroom, and a bedroom. There were exactly 7 steps that led up from the front door to my living room. And right from the start, something about that place felt off. Now, maybe it was just nerves, right? First time living alone, I chalked it up to that. I tried to ignore the goosebumps, the heavy feeling in the air, the way I'd sometimes stop and wonder if someone else was there with me. I've always been sensitive to things like that, you know. Spirits, strange energy. But I told myself, no, it's just stress, nothing more. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. The first time it happened, I was sitting in my bedroom. I had this old rocking chair by the window where I'd sit to read or just think. That evening, I was just relaxing, minding my own business, when I heard the screen door creak open, then the main door. Clear as day, I froze, thought maybe someone had broken in. My heart was hammering. I crept out of the bedroom and peered down the hallway. I could hear footsteps, slow, steady, coming up the 7 steps. But when I looked, there was no one there. The footsteps moved right past me, down the hall, right toward my room. Then, just as suddenly, they turned around and walked back the way they came. That's when I heard it, a low, deep laugh, not human, menacing, like something was enjoying the fear it stirred up. Then the door slammed shut again. I stood there in silence, every hair on my body standing up. After that, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe the pipes creaking weird. But deep down, I knew better. I knew what I heard. A few nights later, I stayed up late watching TV. I kept the lights on all around the place. I just didn't feel right sitting in the dark. Around 1 a.m., I started hearing little tapping sounds from the kitchen. I muted the TV, held my breath. It was rhythmic. Tap, 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 like someone drumming fingers on the counter. Then silence. Then again, but closer. Like it moved from the kitchen to the living room. I didn't sleep that night. Still, the worst of it hadn't come yet. One afternoon, I was standing at the top of the stairs, just inside the front door, enjoying a little breeze from the open screen. That's when it hit me, a cold, bone-deep chill, not the kind you get from wind. This felt alive, Heavy. Before I could even react, something shoved me hard, right in the back. I flew down the 7 steps, hit the landing with a thud that knocked the wind out of me. My ribs screamed, my head spun. Then, from the top of the stairs, came a voice, deep, angry, like it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It roared, "Get up! Get up now! I swear to you, that voice wasn't human." Shaking, hurting, I crawled to the couch and called a friend. He rushed over and drove me to the hospital. Minor concussion, bruised ribs. The doctor said I was lucky. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt marked. Things died down after that. But weird stuff kept happening. Lights flickering, my keys going missing, then turning up in strange spots, once inside the fridge. Voices whispering just as I drifted off to sleep. Shadows flitting across the hallway when I was alone. One time, my friend Marcus stayed over. I didn't tell him anything, didn't want to spook him. But the next morning, he looked at me and said, "Man, your apartment's got a weird vibe. I swear I saw someone standing at the top of the stairs last night." I just nodded. Eventually, I started lighting candles, playing calming music, even asked a local medium to come by. She walked in, stood still for a long minute, then turned to me and said, "You're not alone here." She burned some sage, whispered things in a language I didn't know, and said she helped the spirit move on. For a while, things were quiet, peaceful, even, but I still felt like the apartment remembered. Like the walls held onto that darkness. I don't live there anymore. Moved out a year later. But you never really forget a place that tries to throw you down the stairs. You don't forget a laugh that chills your bones. And sometimes, late at night, when I wake up for no reason at all, I swear I can still hear that voice in my head. Get up now. So that's my story, true as I can tell it. Believe what you want, but I know what I lived through. And if anything else happens, you bet I'll be right here to tell you about it. Thanks for listening. If you've had an experience like this, you're not alone. Drop a comment. Share your story, and if you like these tales, hit that subscribe button. Stay curious, and stay safe out there. Story 9. Alright y'all, gather round, 'cause I got a little story to tell. You know, sometimes the scariest things don't happen in castles or deep dark forests, sometimes they happen right at home. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Now I ain't one to scare easy. But lemme tell ya, this one gave me the chills. So grab a blanket, dim the lights if you dare, and let's get into it. My name's Morgan, and I grew up in a pretty normal neighborhood. In a small town called Larkwood. Not much ever happens out here, just the usual quiet streets. Folks mowing their lawns, kids riding bikes till sundown. Our house ain't nothing fancy either. Built maybe in the early 70s, like most homes around here. But lemme tell ya, there's something off about that place. Not the creaky floors or the occasional draft. Nah, I'm talking 'bout the kinda stuff that makes the hair on your arms stand up. Now, I ain't saying the house itself is cursed or anything dramatic like that. But in my room, we got this real old dresser and rocking chair that used to belong to my great-grandma. Rest her soul. Mama says she was a sweet lady. Real gentle. But ever since those pieces of furniture landed in my room, weird things started happening. A few months back, I had my best friend Leah sleep over. We've been tight since kindergarten. And she ain't the type to make up nonsense. That night, I must have dozed off round 1:30 in the morning. But Leah couldn't sleep, so she pulled out her book and started reading. That's when she heard it, footsteps. Fast ones, like someone running down the hall. Then straight into the bathroom. Slam. Door closed hard. She figured maybe it was my little brother messing around. So she gets up, knocks on the bathroom door, no answer. She waits, knocks again, still nothing. So she slowly opens the door, expecting to see somebody playing a prank. But the bathroom's empty, lights off, ain't nobody there. Now, Leah's face was pale when she told me next morning. She ain't one for ghost stories or silly games. She was shaken. I believed her, too, 'cause I'd felt the same unease myself. Like someone was watching you when you're alone. You know that feeling? A couple weeks after that, I was home alone. Mama had gone to pick up my brother and sister from school. I was downstairs on the computer, chatting with a friend, when I heard it, loud, thump thump thump, someone running upstairs. I froze. Our dog, Penny, was in her crate in the kitchen. The cat? She was outside in the yard. And anyway, she's too little to make a racket like that. I turned down the computer volume. Listening. Nothing for a second. Then a creak. Like someone stepping real slow across the floor above me. I grabbed the bat we keep behind the pantry door and crept up the stairs. Heart hammering in my chest. Room by room. I checked. My room. The kids' room. The hallway closet. Nothing. Dead quiet. One time, I was sitting on the floor in my room, working on a project for school. TV was on behind me. Just background noise. Outta nowhere. Click. TV shuts off. I turned around, thinking maybe I leaned on the remote or something. Nope. Remote was sitting on the dresser. I walked over and tried turning it back on. Nothing. Unplugged it. Plugged it back in. Still nothing. I called Daddy. And when he got home, guess what? It worked like normal. Brand new set too. Never gave us trouble again. Just that one time. Then there was the bed incident. Might have been the creepiest of them all. I was laying there one night, flipping through my phone before sleep. And I felt it. The mattress dipped down at the end like someone sat on it. Not heavy, just a light pressure. I figured Penny had somehow gotten out and jumped up. I sat up, calling her name. No sound. Flipped on the light. Bed's empty. Room's empty. Penny's still in her crate downstairs. Door latched tight. I know it sounds crazy. Maybe to some folks, it's easy to write off. Drafts. House settling. Maybe just my imagination running wild. But I ain't the only one feeling it. Leah felt it. My mama even said she hears the rocker creaking sometimes at night when no one's in the room. There's something in that room. Something tied to the furniture. Maybe, or maybe it's always been there. And we just didn't notice till now. But I'll tell y'all this, some nights, I sleep with the light on. And that old rocker? I covered it with a blanket. Somehow, not seeing it makes me feel a little safer. And you know what? As scary as it is, there's something kinda fascinating about it too. Like I'm living in one of those ghost stories you hear late at night. But this one's mine. What gets me about this story is how personal it feels. It ain't about some grand haunting or terrifying demon, it's the quiet stuff. The kind that sneaks up on you when you think you're alone. The kind of story where you can almost hear the footsteps, feel the weight on the bed, or see the bathroom door slam shut all by itself. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing's for sure, Some homes carry more than just memories. Thanks for listening, folks. If y'all enjoyed this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. I got plenty more where this came from. Till next time, keep your lights on and your eyes open. Story 10. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Tonight, I've got one last story to share in this series. A tale that'll stick with you long after the lights go out. You know, people always assume only old houses creak with ghosts and memories. But sometimes, even a place with brand new walls can carry something ancient inside it. If you've ever felt like someone was watching you from the corner of your eye in your own home, this one might hit close to home. Let me tell y'all about something strange that happened when me and my family moved into a brand new house about 10 years ago. Back then, I was just a little thing, barely 3 years old. We were all excited, you know, new paint smell, shiny floors, everything looked perfect. But turns out, that place came with more than just fresh carpet and working plumbing. My mama told me later that not long after we moved in, she started hearing me talking in my room. I was too little to remember much, but she said I'd just sit there, chatting away like someone was right there with me. When she asked me who I was talking to, I apparently said, real plain and simple, the man in the blue shirt. That's all I could tell her. A man in a blue shirt. Didn't sound scary at the time. Just a toddler's imaginary friend. Right? But Mama said there was something about the way I said it. Calm. Serious. Like it wasn't pretend at all. Fast forward a few years. I'm older. Not talking to invisible folks anymore. One summer afternoon, Mama was out mowing the lawn. She took a break to wipe the sweat off her brow and just happened to glance up at my bedroom window. And right there, plain as day, she saw a man in a blue shirt standing in the window, staring out, like he was watching her. Now, let me just pause and say, ain't nobody supposed to be in the house. It was locked. Everyone else was outside. She dropped everything, ran inside, and found nothing. No one. Not a soul. My window was closed, room untouched, but she swore up and down she saw him. Said he looked solid, real, just like you or me. Things got weirder when my stepdad moved in. He's the type that doesn't spook easy. You know, real grounded. But one morning he came into the kitchen looking pale. Said he woke up in the middle of the night and saw a man in a blue shirt standing at the foot of their bed. Just standing there, still as a statue. He blinked, and the man was gone. A few nights later, Mama had her own experience. She was sleeping alone that night. Woke up to some loud thumping noises. First thought, maybe one of us kids was up. But when she opened her eyes, she saw him, the blue man, standing in the corner of the room, right by the door, not doing anything, just watching. And then he faded, like smoke. One time, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a face, right there. Just inches from mine. I flinched, blinked, and it disappeared. That stuck with me. I didn't tell anyone for a while. Thought maybe I was dreaming. But dreams don't feel that cold, that real. My sister, she had her own moment too. She stayed in the basement, said it gave her some privacy. One evening, she was on her computer, just minding her business, when she caught a glimpse of something in the reflection of her screen. A man, standing on the other side of the room. She turned around, empty. But the reflection had been clear. Too clear. The next week, I was in her bathroom cleaning. Normal day. But then I saw it. A bright blue light. Almost like someone flipped on a neon sign behind me. I turned, and there it was again. A face in the light. No body. Just a face. Then gone. It wasn't just us either. Friends that stayed over would talk about weird feelings. Cold spots. Dreams that didn't feel like dreams. One cousin even said she heard someone whisper her name in the hallway late at night. Over the years, we all came to believe that whatever, or whoever, this blue man was. He wasn't going anywhere, never hurt anyone, never spoke, but he was there, watching, like he belonged there more than we did. So, are we crazy? Is my whole family just imagining the same ghost in the same blue shirt over and over? I don't think so. And the people who visited and saw things too, they weren't part of some family delusion. I think some spirits get attached to places. Not because they're angry or sad. Maybe just because that place meant something to them. Or maybe they never really left. Anyway, that's our story. And since this is the last tale in this series, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's stuck with me through each spooky step of the journey. It's been a ride, full of chills, strange shadows, and late-night whispers. If you've got a story of your own, something weird that's happened to you or someone you know, don't be shy. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to read him. We've built a little haunted corner of the internet here. And it wouldn't be the same without y'all. If you've enjoyed these stories, found yourself looking over your shoulder more than once, or just love a good ghost tale, please take a moment to like this video. Subscribe to the channel, and ring that little bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Who knows, maybe we'll start a new series real soon. Thanks again for joining me. Until we meet again, stay safe, sleep tight, and don't be surprised if you catch a glimpse of something blue. See y'all next time.